We are joined by Dr. Mike and Dr. Greg. They are both with us, and we are going to kick right off with this and waste no time. So, Dr. Greg, are you with us?
I am, Woodson. Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. It's so great that you joined us, and I know you've got something special prepared for the first part of this segment about it's a system, so I am going to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks. It really is a pleasure to be here, and like you said, this is a system. It isn't a diet, and I think that that's what separates MyGreat28 from so many other things out there, and it is a well thought out system. And as you're going to see, we're going to be talking about 6 different areas of this whole weight loss problem, and how the MyGreat28 program really helps address all of these different areas. Now, I've worked with many different diet programs in the past, and quite truthfully, I've been disappointed. They work up to a point, but then they stop working, and when they stop working, people get discouraged, and guess what? That weight comes back, and quite often it comes back in spades, meaning that people actually gain more weight than they started out with. So I am so happy to be a part of this program, because it really does work better than anything I've ever seen. Now, at the core of the program, of course, is the Slendrix and Accelerate, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit in more detail. That's the core of the program, and it really does help give people the boost that they need, helps keep them on track and focused. But we've also incorporated cutting-edge nutritional therapy, that really does stimulate and accelerate the weight loss far beyond what any diet alone, even a diet coupled with appetite suppressants, could ever hope to achieve. As we see in the next slide, that for millennia, malnutrition has been the cause of disease and early death. In fact, it's the number one. It's been estimated that 80 to 90% of early death and significant disease can be related to malnutrition. And in the past, malnutrition meant an inadequate amount of nutrients. People would literally starve to the point where they became very sick and would die. And worldwide, we've seen areas of famine in our lifetimes, or at least in my lifetime, and that had been the major cause of disease and death worldwide for many years. But what we're seeing now is a different type of malnutrition. And malnutrition simply means bad nutrition or poor nutrition. Now, nobody in their right mind could take a look at this gentleman and say that he was in good health, And when we look at what he's eating, he's eating French fries, which are potatoes. Potatoes, are basically a pure carbohydrate with very few nutrients, in them, very few vitamins, very few minerals. They're fried in bad fats, and we're going to be talking about fats in a little bit, and they're also dipped in ketchup, and a lot of people consider ketchup a vegetable, but you know what? There may be some tomatoes in there, but very few people realize that there's also more sugar in a tablespoon of ketchup than there is in a tablespoon of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Now, but this gentleman is probably justifying in his mind that he can eat these things, without any concern, because guess what? He's drinking a Diet Coke. So he gave up the real stuff, which is loaded with sugar, for something that he thinks is healthier. But this guy is sadly mistaken. And when you look at someone like this, he's going to eat that meal. In very short order, he's going to be looking for something else, because guess what? He's not giving his body the nutrients that it needs. you know, and if he would just give his body, you know, proper nutrition, guess what? The weight would start coming off. Regardless of whether he really cut back in his total calorie consumption, if he started eating the right foods and taking, you know, the right kinds of nutritional supplements, his weight would actually come down. Let's move on to the next slide, Woodson. What we see here is we see a slide with the Nutrify. And Nutrify is a brand of nutritional supplements. These supplements are, you know, the best supplements in the world. They, you know, the vitamins and minerals, all derived from good, healthy fruit and vegetable sources. They're natural. Our body knows what to do with them. They're all processed using cold technology. They're not heated. Unfortunately, when we cook fruits and vegetables, guess what? Some of those nutrients are lost, and sometimes significant. There's significant loss of nutrients. Well, our nutrients are extracted using cold enzymatic processes. The phytonutrients are there. We have a whole line of nutritional supplements that are blended not only to you know, meet specific needs, but to go beyond that, to give you value-added nutrition in every supplement that you see there. In fact, you know, when we look at one subset, you know, of people in the clinical trial, which we don't talk about very much, is a group of people that just received the optimals, the vitamin and mineral supplements. And guess what? Once they started taking those, regardless of any change in their diet, they started losing weight. And why was that? Well, it's because that they were giving themselves, they were giving their bodies the nutrition that they needed on a daily basis. So they were covering their nutritional needs 24/7. Now there's a thought out there, and it makes a lot of sense, that when you have a nutritional deficiency, your brain can sense that. Your brain senses that deficiency, and guess what? The only thing it can do is trigger a hunger response. It can't tell us what to eat to meet that nutritional need, okay? So a lot of that sort of mindless foraging for food, we think, is due to a lack of a specific, or sometimes multiple, in the case of most Americans, deficiency in nutrients. So you give the body the nutrients that it needs, and guess what? The brain doesn't trigger that hunger response quite as readily, and so the weight starts to come off. Okay, but coupled with, you know, the program, okay, you're actually increasing the weight loss. So we're going to be talking about Slenderize and Accelerate shortly, and I believe that's the next slide. So why don't we move on to that, Woodson? Okay, what we have, okay, is the classic sort of a caloric imbalance. Okay, now when I went through medical school, and even up until just a few years ago, you know, when we started learning more about weight and the problem of obesity, we used to say, well, it's how much you ate versus how much you burned, okay? So if you ate, you know, 1,500 calories a day and burnt 1,500 calories a day, you would be weight neutral. You wouldn't gain weight or you wouldn't lose weight, okay? But what we've learned is that it really does matter what you eat, okay? And so if you eat, you know, 1,500 calories of good quality food, you know, good quality proteins, good quality fats, and green leafy vegetables, and burn 1,500 calories a day, you are not going to gain weight. In fact, you're probably going to lose weight, even though you're burning as many calories as you're consuming. And why is that? Well, because some of these calories in those good quality foods, you know, are actually not meant to be used as fuel, but they're actually building blocks. You know, our body needs certain nutrients, you know, certain essential fats and good quality protein to build good muscle and good lean tissue, okay? So how does that work, and what types of foods are we eating that are making us fat? Well, the answer to that is plain and simple refined carbohydrates, okay? And you know, one of the simplest forms of carbohydrates is sugar, okay? Table sugar is actually fructose and glucose together, and readily readily absorbed. It's meant to be used as fuel. It's meant to be burnt off fairly quickly. But guess what? If it isn't burnt off, it's stored as fat. Okay? And unfortunately, we've sort of been programmed to eat more carbohydrates, especially those simple carbohydrates, those easy to grab and easy to eat sort of things that keep us going during our hectic day, but they're exactly the wrong kinds of foods to eat. Okay, so what we've done with this program, in addition to the approved food list, let's move on, Woodson, is that we've employed the use of the Slenderix and the Accelerate, the Slenderized system. Okay, and how is this helpful? Well, in the Slenderix we have things in there, and that's a homeopathic preparation, which helps decrease cravings, especially for carbohydrates. It helps control the appetite, so you feel full quicker. It also has things in there that actually help accelerate fat loss. Okay, so it works on that third part, how much you burn. Okay, so it helps us burn fat faster. Okay, and then in the Accelerate, it's an herbal preparation that has a rhodiola and ashwagandha and a number of other things. But what these do, these help keep us on track. These help keep us focused. These help give us a boost of energy. So in the past, before using these products, you might have felt a little sluggish, and your brain would say, well, I need something to eat. And what did you reach for? Well, something quick and easy, something that would give you a little sugar high, a little sugar buzz that would help get you going. Well, guess what? With the Accelerate, you really don't need that, okay? Because it gives you that little boost of energy. It's not a stimulant. There's nothing in here that's going to accelerate heart rate. There's no true appetite suppressants in here. So it's good, clean, all natural, homeopathic and herbal-based therapy, and I've never seen anything like it. Let's move on to point number 3, Woodson.
This slide had me written all over it.
Yes, I like that too. And it's especially because we got a donut covered with powdered sugar, and we've got powder of a different sort laid out on that tray. But what a lot of people don't realize that food, okay, is somewhat addictive. And simple carbohydrates, sugar especially. I mean, anybody who's seen a kid go crazy over something sweet can realize that there's something going on there. Okay, sugar is addictive, and in fact, those areas in the brain that sort of help stimulate those cravings for sugar are very close in proximity to those same areas in the brain that control addiction for substances like heroin and cocaine and nicotine. Okay, so there's a very close correlation between sugar and other drugs. Now, in years past, okay, as a culture in America, in the 1700s, people ate less than a pound of sugar a year. There are people, and in fact, the vast majority of people in the country now eat over 18 pounds of sugar a month. Okay? So, I mean, that is amazing. Sugar is so readily available now. It's put into everything that we eat, and it's put there deliberately, okay, by food manufacturers, because they know that if they can put enough sugar in anything, it's going to increase consumption of it. And so they're using that addictive sort of behavior to help sell their products. Okay. Now, how do we deal with that? Let's move on to the next slide, Woodson. Oh, actually, we're going to talk more about the addiction here. And how does this work? Well, it starts, if we look at the carb addiction cycle, starts with the craving. Okay. Now, and we all have cravings. And that's the one great thing about this MyGreat28 program is we learn to crave other things, which is truly amazing. But for most Americans, that craving usually means something sweet, something high in simple carbohydrates, and often high in bad fats as well. Then you eat the carbohydrates, you give into the cravings, and you feel good for a while. But for most people who are overweight, they have some insulin resistance. Okay, so the blood sugar starts to rise, causes some insulin release. But guess what? That insulin is supposed to get that blood sugar into the muscle cells to turn it into glycogen and to be used as fuel. Okay, but guess what happens? Because of the insulin resistance, those gates don't open up. Those little doors don't open up in the muscles. They open up in the fat cells. And guess what? The fat cells produce extra fat to store it away, and the sugar, the carbohydrates in the bloodstream drop quickly, causing low blood sugar, which in turn causes more cravings. Okay, and so I think that in the past, I could remember times where I would eat something sweet, and then a very short period later, I'd want something sweet again. Okay, but you can break that cycle, okay, by starting to eat good quality foods, good lean, proteins, good green leafy vegetables, and that cycle can be broken very, very quickly. When we look at the addiction cycle, and I'm not going to go through it, but it really looks pretty much like the carb addiction cycle. Okay, and this is a physiologic process, that occurs because of insulin resistance and excess insulin production. But there's other things that happen in the brain which are more in the true addiction cycle. You get that emotional trigger, you give into it, you're eating the carbs, and guess what? Then you feel guilty. Okay, and you beat yourself up for not sticking to the diet. That triggers an emotional response, which leads to a craving, which again leads to giving in again and feeling guilty. So it's sort of a vicious cycle, and if we don't break it, okay, it's going to continue. And we have products that help break this cycle. So on the next slide, we see that in addition to the Slender-X and Accelerate, which have things in there that help break that addictive pattern. Okay, we've already talked about how they work, but very, very helpful for breaking that cycle. Okay, but for those who are true carbohydrate addicts, okay, and I think Woodson has admitted to that, and I've been a little bit of a carb junkie myself, but in the clinical trial, we had people that self-identified themselves as doomed to fail. Okay, these were people who were addicted to various carbohydrates. Okay, in fact, there was one woman who drank a 2-liter bottle of regular Coke during the night. Okay, while she was supposed to be sleeping, she took one to bed with her. Okay, now that is a true carbohydrate junkie. Now, they were given Rejuvenex, and what Rejuvenex is, it's a blend of superfruits, okay, and it gives you a boost of energy that is very smooth, very clean. There's no highs and lows with this, and what it did was it helped replace that little energy spike that these people were, looking for with their carbohydrates, okay? And in fact, this group had the greatest weight loss of anybody in the clinical trial. So truly an amazing product. So if you're one of those carbohydrate junkies that can't give up their sodas, that can't give up their donuts, can't give up their bread, their pasta, Rejuvenex is the product for you, because it will really help break that cycle and get you on the right track. Problem number 4, if we can move to the next slide, is fats. Okay, and there's a lot of confusion about fat, and Dr. Mike and I are about the same age, and when we were going through medical school, and even before then, fats were being vilified. Fats were being blamed for excessive weight, for heart disease, and a host of other problems. And there was a big national effort, to decrease fats in the diet. Okay, and I can remember counseling my patients who liked butter. They would switch over to margarine, and because butter was bad. Butter had cholesterol in it, and I told them, I said, stick with the butter, just eat it in moderation, because you don't know what's in that margarine. Okay, and truth be told, margarine is full of saturated and trans fats, and it's not the fats, or it's not the cholesterol that was really the problem. It was the type of fats that people were eating. Okay, so we substituted an animal fat which had some cholesterol in it for sort of man-made fats, which actually were worse than the cholesterol, because what these fats did, they actually increased disproportionately the levels of LDL cholesterol, okay, versus the total in the good cholesterol. So we were not ingesting cholesterol in our diet, but we were actually causing more LDL, more bad cholesterol to be formed, and this was the worst type of the bad cholesterol, okay, which actually could accelerate your risk for heart disease. But we got the two ladies on the right-hand side. We have poly and mono, and so the polysaturated and the monosaturated fat, polyunsaturated and monosaturated fats are actually the good fats. These fats actually are beneficial. They help increase your levels of HDL. And like I said before, fats, essential fats, are important. Okay, they're important for bodily functions, and they're important for the health of vital tissues. And we could see this on the next slide. That good fats actually help promote fat loss, okay? And how do they do that? Well, we don't really understand all of the mechanisms, but we do know from clinical trials that people that actually took in good fat in addition to a standard diet compared to those people who got the standard diet alone, so actually these people with the fats were getting more calories, they actually burnt burnt fat faster. Now that's a tongue twister there. They also help build muscle. They curb cravings for junk food. Now why is that? Well, fats are very satisfying. Okay, our body, our stomach feels good when we've got a reasonable amount of fat in our gut, and in fact, fat helps delay gastric emptying. So if you have good fats, okay, in your diet, that food is going to stay in your stomach a little bit longer. It gets metered into the small intestine or dumped into the small intestine slower. You do not absorb calories from your stomach. You absorb calories from your small intestine. So these nutrients and the calories are sort of metered out into the small intestine slower. And guess what? Your blood sugar doesn't rise as quickly. Your insulin levels don't rise as fast either, okay, or as much, because your body's able to handle the smaller amounts of carbohydrates being absorbed over a longer period of time. Okay, fats are also essential nutrients. There's essential fatty acids that our bodies need for vital health. They also allow us to absorb vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants quicker. Some of these things are fat soluble, and so if you have adequate fats in your diet, they're going to help you absorb these nutrients better. Okay, and they can also help prevent nutrient loss during cooking. Okay, so some of these fats can actually absorb some of the nutrients from the foods that we are cooking. And if you're going to be cooking with a fat, one of the best fats out there is coconut oil. Okay, because it doesn't change with heat. Some of the other good fats, like olive oil and the nut oils and things like that, when you heat them beyond a certain point, they start to change and they turn into less favorable types of fats. But coconut oil is one of the best oils for cooking. It's also one of the best oils with regards to providing the essential fatty acids that our bodies need. Okay. Another way to get the good quality fats that we need, if we can move on to the next slide, Woodson, is with the product that's near and dear to my heart, Omega Q. Now, I've been taking fish oil supplements for quite a few years now, and primarily because my father died of a heart attack at a very young age. And so I thought, fish oil is going to be helpful for me to prevent that from happening to me. But I've been disappointed with fish oil products in the past because they always left a rather fishy taste in my mouth shortly after taking them. But this product, the Omega Q, uses the purest quality fish oils that can be found on the planet. Okay, the oils are extracted from very small fish that are caught off pristine waters off the coast of Chile. They're sent to Canada where they're processed using an enzymatic process to extract them. There's no solvents used in this process at all. Hexene is used universally to extract fish oil. Hexene is a toxin. It's implicated as a carcinogen, and our product does not have any hexene anywhere near it. In addition to the good quality fish oil, which provides essential omega-3 and 6 fatty acids, there's also CoQ10, ubiquinol. Ubiquinol or CoQ10 is essential for cellular energy and metabolism. Okay, CoQ10 and ubiquinol is the natural form of CoQ10 that our bodies use. It's very readily absorbed. It's much more potent than ubiquinone, which is the most common CoQ10 product on the market. But if you can rev up cellular energy, if you can give your cells, a boost with energy production, guess what? They're going to perform better, and they're going to help you lose weight quicker. Okay? So I've seen this time and time again. Some people who have an issue with the weight loss stalls. You can increase the Omega Q, and that gets things back on track. Okay, so the usual dosage is twice a day, but some people may need to take 3 or 4 capsules a day to keep that weight loss going, and it's nothing but goodness for you. So don't be afraid to do that. Let's move on to point 5. Let's say. Okay, healthy alternatives. Okay. Now, I like this picture because, the lady on the left, she's heading for an accident, okay, plain and simple. You shouldn't be eating while driving, okay, especially a big two-handed burger and an oversized soft drink, okay. And the guy on the right-hand side, he's going to eat and work himself into a heart attack, And I think, our society really puts so much pressure on people to be as productive as possible, in the workplace and also in their busy, hectic lives. Okay, but the truth of the matter is, if they took time out to get good quality nutrition and take a little time to enjoy it, okay, their productivity would actually increase, during the course of the day. Because when people feel pressured and need something to eat, guess what? They eat the wrong things. They take something that's quick and easy, bereft of nutrition, high in saturated fats and simple carbohydrates, and it's either going to leave them sluggish, okay, a little bit later, or they're going to be looking for something else to eat in very short order because their sugar levels have risen quickly and then dropped dramatically. Okay, so how can you avoid this type of behavior? Well, with the the slenderized system, okay, in your little handbook it says plan your meals. Okay, and Dr. Mike's going to be talking about the great success one of his patients had, a lady named Willow, but she came up with some very creative ways of dealing with these sorts of problems. And Dr. Mike's going to share that, and I can't wait to hear it again. But another alternative, okay, if we can advance the slide, is the Pure Nourish. And Pure Nourish is, I mean, they couldn't have picked a better name for it, okay, because it is absolutely pure and it is very, very nourishing. And this is meant to be used as sort of a snack or as a meal replacement if you add some other things into it, okay? Now, it is very pure protein. It's all plant-based. It's all organic. It's GMO-free. It's pesticide-free. It is clean as clean can be. The proteins are extracted from peas, cranberries, and almonds, okay? So very good plant-based sources. It's mixed with probiotics. It has some natural digestive enzymes in it. It has some antioxidants and other beneficial things in it. It is very easy to mix, okay? It can be mixed with plain water. It can be mixed with almond milk. And you can add fruit, and you can add vegetables such as spinach or kale. And that's what I do in the morning. I'll blend up a Pure Nourish shake. I'll add a little spinach or kale to it. And you know what? I'll also add a couple tablespoons of grapeseed oil. Grapeseed oil is one of those oils that's very, very good for you. And guess what? That breakfast holds me through to lunchtime because it's packed full of nutrition. Plus it's got some oil in there, good quality fat, which actually keeps it in my stomach a little bit longer. So it's a great way to get either a little snack, okay, if you mix it just with water, or to make a real meal out of it by adding some other things to it, okay? And let's move on to point 6. And point 6 is near and dear to my heart because it has to do with the topic of toxins. Now, what are toxins? Well, toxins are things, and generally they're fat soluble, okay, and they can be the metabolic end products of natural processes that happen in our body. Microorganisms in our gut can actually produce toxins that we absorb. The contaminants that we breathe in, the pollutants, the things that are on our foods, like insecticides, pesticides, the food additives that are thrown in there, drugs. We are increasingly becoming more and more aware of the long-term toxic side effect of the drugs that we use to treat health problems. And other things like alcohol, nicotine, other things that we voluntarily put into our bodies, okay? Now, these toxins have to be processed, okay? And they're processed in the liver. They're turned into water-soluble products, and then they can be eliminated either through the kidneys in the urine, or can be expressed in the bile through the gallbladder back into the small intestine where it's supposed to be eliminated in the stool. But guess what? Some of these toxins in the liver can be overwhelmed. It can't be handled as they should be. And guess what? They're stored in the fat. And as time goes on, we store more and more toxins in the fat cells, and our body actually starts to generate more fat because it needs more space to store the toxins, okay? So that's another problem that is only recently been gaining attention, that our bodies make fat as a protection against these toxins. Now, how can we deal with that problem? Because as we start to lose weight, guess what? These fat cells shrink. The concentration of toxins within these fat cells actually increases, okay? And some of them are being released into the system, and it overwhelms our body. And guess what? our body has mechanisms to actually shut down the fat loss. Okay, and how can we resolve that sort of problem? Well, our toxins, are ingested in some form. They're either, we take them in orally, or we breathe them in, or they're actually absorbed through our skin. People don't realize that a lot of the skincare products out there are loaded with things that, in the laboratory, require sort of hazmat gear to handle them. Okay, but here we are freely putting them on our skin. Our skin is, very capable of absorbing some of these things, quite readily into the bloodstream. Okay, they get circulated through the liver, but if they're absorbed through the skin, guess what? Or the lungs, they're going to go through the tissues, to the brain, before they go to the liver. So the liver doesn't have an opportunity to process these toxins, so they get deposited wherever they can along the way, and later down the road, they actually can pass through the liver and be processed. But in the processing of these toxins in the liver, a lot of them get secreted back into the gut in the bile. Okay, and there's a process called the enterohepatic recirculation, where the bile is actually reabsorbed into the bloodstream, and it's sort of a cycling of these toxins. A good amount of them get eliminated, but a substantial amount of them get reabsorbed and get put back into the circulation, where again they can get deposited in the cells, in the fat cells, and further the problem. So this is what naturally happens, and with a product that is very, very near and dear to my heart, Restorix, we can actually interrupt that enterohepatic recirculation of these toxins. Okay, Restorix, its heart is zeolite, and this is sort of an electron image of what zeolite looks like. Okay, and it's a matrix. It's a very complex honeycomb type matrix. Okay, it's a naturally occurring substance, and at the center of each one of these little cells, okay, I like to call them cells, is a negative charge. A lot of the toxins that we face have a positive charge, so that negative charge attracts the positive charge. They get locked into these little cells, and zeolite is so large it can't be absorbed. So these toxins get trapped into these little cells, and during the course of our natural elimination, we get rid of a lot more toxins. So our bodies, our gut can't reabsorb these toxins, and it helps rid our body of a lot more toxins than we normally could. Now the blood level of these toxins diminishes, so that as we start to lose weight, okay, the release of these toxins isn't as much of a threat because you're getting rid of them. Okay, and I've seen it happen time and time again, where people actually stop losing weight. They cannot lose any more weight even though they're following the program. Well, with the addition of the Restorix, guess what? That weight loss starts back up again and actually increases at a faster rate, because we've eliminated the problem of the toxin load that has led to, in great part, the deposition of extra fat for many people. And so it definitely is a vital part of the program. It will not only help you lose the fat faster, but guess what? It helps prevent the fat from coming back, because you reduce the total amount of toxins in your body. So your body isn't compelled to build fat cells to store these toxins anymore. So it's a wonderful product. regardless of whether I need to lose any weight, I'm going to keep taking my zeolite because I know it is helping get rid of a lot of the things that I've accumulated over many years. I think that's the 6 points that I wanted to cover. And no, we saw that one. So the clinical trial, on average, women lost 1/2 pound per day. Men lost 2/3 pounds per day for the first 28 days. Okay, your results may vary, but my experience for most people is if they stick with the program, if they use the nutritional supplements to their advantage, okay, and that's exactly what it is, it's to their advantage, they are going to lose a minimum of 1/2 pound per day, but for many people, they're going to lose more than that. And I've seen it happen time and time again. So I think that's it for my part. Yes, I can't wait to hear Dr. Mike and an update on Willow.
Well, and I so want to just thank you, Dr. Greg, for really explaining the different types of fats and what they do, because I didn't realize that fat-free food is what made me so heavy, and that I had a very serious sugar addiction, and then being able to have a system that I didn't miss it. I didn't think that was possible, and then understanding what those toxins are doing to all of us. I don't think anybody can live in the 21st century and not have loads of toxins going through their body, even if they live and eat a relatively clean life. And so that was just awesome. I appreciate it so much. I know everybody else does.
Well, thank you, Woodson. And you know, people are blaming. I mean, there's some good research showing that the current obesity epidemic, in large part, is due to that sort of fat-free craze that we grew up with. And we shifted fat, and in its place we put in simple carbohydrates, and that was exactly the wrong thing to do.
That's the truth. That is so true. Now we're going to switch gears to coaching Willow. Willow is the most fascinating case study. I don't want to steal the thunder of her story. I want to turn this over directly to Dr. Mike, who has worked with Willow from day one. And I love the way he titled this, How the Coach Learned a Few Lessons. So Dr. Mike, take it away. We're so thrilled to have you with us. Talk to us about Willow and what you mean with all this.
Absolutely, and kudos to Dr. Greg. That was a very good presentation. Now, in my life as a doctor, my role, among other things, is supposed to be the healer as well as the teacher. But every now and then, and I'm sure that most doctors, most people working in the healthcare field feel this, we learn lessons from our patients. I also coach youth sports, and every now and then, an athlete, a student athlete, will give me an insight into the sport that I thought I knew a lot of. And so the same thing happened here. This lady comes to one of my seminars, and in subsequent conversation, she told me that the reason she decided to sign up, now she did not know that she was going to have the success she had, but the reason she decided to sign up in the program is because I had basically told her that I didn't think she could achieve the results she wanted. And I did not make that statement coming from a bad place, but she told me in the interview that she had been trying to get down below 200 pounds for the last 6 years, and she had done multiple programs, including P90X, insanity workouts, a whole host of other things out there, and she may have gotten stronger, but she certainly did not lose the weight. So I didn't think that she was going to have success. She took that on as a personal challenge, and she literally reinvented the program and then taught me a few lessons. So these are some of the emails that she started to send to us basically on a weekly basis. I have my clients submit their food diaries and any questions on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, depending on the need. And she started engaging in a conversation. So she started off by saying how amazed she was with the MyGreat28 and Slenderize system. Every pound that she's losing and has lost is worth all the money that she spent. Her health was so much better. She had major aches and pains because of her work. And she was at the point in her life where hormone balance was a little bit of an issue. One of the biggest problems she had at the beginning was, or she thought, was that she was going to be asked to consume 100 ounces of water, and it was going to be interrupting her daily work routine. Because Willow happens to manage a fast food restaurant. It's a national chain restaurant, and she can't really take time off from the front desk too much because then she won't have a job. Additionally, her duties included tasting the French fries and the chicken nuggets every 2 minutes. So imagine that these are the challenges that you're faced with, and this is what you're surrounded with every single day. So she started on the program, and she started to get fairly creative. So the first issue was the water, and she learned after she expressed this concern to me. I told her, listen, your body's going to take about 7 to 10 days to get used to the additional amount of water. Yes, at the beginning you're going to go to the bathroom a lot because your kidneys don't quite understand that the water is not a permanent thing. They still think it's a temporary thing. So your kidneys are going to do their best to get rid of it. But somewhere between the 7th and the 10th day, your kidneys are going to realize, you know what, this water is on board for good, and it's going to start shifting more of that water out of the bloodstream and into your tissues and into your organs. And this is one of those really good things, because all of a sudden your organs, which were starved for fluid, for water, have more than enough water to start functioning correctly. And this includes your brain, your muscles, your joints. You start thinking and feeling better all over. So that was one of the first emails that she sent. The second email that she sent was even more interesting, because her job site location is associated with a local university. So they cut back over the summer months, and so she had to figure out what she was going to do. One of the challenges she had at work was to get sufficient exercise while at work. And so what she shared with me was, rather than just get the frozen French fries out of the frozen locker and immediately dump them into the fryer, she would take the French fries and do a few squats and overhead lifts with the bag of French fries. And she would do this all throughout the day. Now understand, most of the employees were laughing at her. Most of the employees thought that she had lost her last brain cell. But Willow understood that she was going to make this work, and exercising for her was a big part of that. She did not have the time to get to a gym or to exercise after work, and so she had to wrap it into her workday. So when the summer lull came along, she found an alternative to having to do the lifting, because for better or for worse, at a certain age, our joints can't handle as much stress as before. And so she found the trampoline and she started to use it. So in addition to using the program and burning 800 to 1,000 calories, she added in the trampoline work. Now, here's the interesting thing. At this stage, Willow is no longer eating 1,250 calories per day. Because she is exercising so much and she's losing weight and building muscle, we actually increased her calorie intake. Now, this is always one of those strange things when people first hear it. You want me to eat more? Doc, I don't think you understand. I want to lose weight. And I look at them and I nod my head and say, yes, I know. And you need to eat more in order to lose the weight. And yes, you will need to eat more fat, the good fat, but you will specifically need to eat more protein. So here's a look at Willow's numbers. The next slide shows some of the numbers that we had generated, and I condensed these numbers. So Willow's first big goal was to get below 200 pounds, and she'd been trying for the last 6 years to get that done. We got it done in 7 days. I remember Willow walking in, getting on the scale, getting off the scale, getting back on the scale, and then she started to jump up and down the scale. And I had to ask her to stop it because I was afraid she was going to break the scale. Once I understood her source of elation, it's like, okay, fine, I get it. And the better part was, as Willow was leaving, the mailman was coming in for the day, and he got hugged and kissed. And he turns around and looks at us and goes, "What are you all doing? This is fun." Now, by week 5, Willow had lost just a smidge over 6 pounds. It doesn't sound like a lot, but Willow was the lady I was talking about last week. She lost 20-some pounds of fat on the way to losing 6 pounds of weight. And the reason was because she was putting on muscle faster than she was losing the fat. After 7 weeks on the program, she's lost just shy of 12 pounds of body weight. But again, she has shrunken down so much that she needs new uniforms. So as I'm sitting there coaching her through the different components of her diet and her exercise regimen and her daily routine, her cell phone starts bleeping. So the next slide shows this very, very nicely. In a 30-minute coaching and social visit, her cell phone chimed 3 separate times. Without breaking stride, without interrupting the conversation, she simply reached into her bag and pulled out her bottle of water and started drinking. When she got to 250 ml of water, she closed up the bottle, put it back in. Now understand, there was no interruption of anything. The phone bleeped, she reached in, we were still talking, I was outlining certain things in her food diary, and life went on as usual. And then her phone chimed yet again. And she reached back into her bag, and this time around I stopped talking because it's like, okay, the girl has a system in place. The salad dressing containers, when you go out to restaurants and you ask for the salad dressing, typically they're in single serving containers. And of course, because she works at a fast food restaurant, she has access to a ton of these things. She puts nut butters, whether it's peanut butter, almond butter, or occasionally nuts, she puts them into these containers. And she has as many as she needs throughout the day. It might be 4 for that particular day. It might be 6 for that particular day. However her day goes, she pre-plans all these things. And she simply reaches into the bag, opens up the container, and consumes the contents as we're talking and going over the food diary. And then, when she was done with that, her phone chimed for the 3rd time. Another 250 ml of water. I looked at her and I asked, "You have a system for this, don't you?" Her answer was very revealing. She works in the fast food industry. Everything runs according to a pre-timed cycle. The fries come out of the freezer at a certain temperature. They get put into a certain oil at a certain temperature, and they stay there for X number of minutes and X number of seconds. She took the lessons she learned from working and applied it to this program. And I looked at her in amazement and I said, "Willow, will you let me share that information with the rest of the world, because that is a system that other people can easily acquire and help with their program." And so I came up with this phrase shown in the next slide. It's W3D. What would Willow do? Her system can help the next person have this kind of success. Now, exactly what kind of success has she had? Since this interaction, and we have continued this interaction, and she's still an ongoing client, I have met all of her 3 adult children. 2 of them, the boys, have decided that they're going to start eating cleaner and start exercising. The girl, who is in culinary school, has decided that she's going to major on food preparation for people who want to lose weight. Willow has since been interviewed and featured in a local fitness magazine here in Daytona Beach, because it is amazing that somebody who works in a fast food restaurant and has to taste French fries and chicken nuggets every 2 minutes could lose the weight and keep the weight off, get stronger and healthier in the middle of all of that. So Next time you have a problem or an issue with how to make this program work, ask yourself, what would Willow do?
Oh my goodness, Dr. Mike, that was so great. And Willow's example, setting the chimes on my phone, is exactly how I trained myself to drink the 100 ounces of water a day. That little tip that you gave me just a little while ago is what changed my results dramatically. And it was just so simple to do. And I think everybody has a smartphone that they can do. And then it just became habit, and it wasn't any big deal. And it was because of Willow. So I love that. What would Willow do? And I love that story. I love hearing her progress, what she's doing, and I just think that's awesome that the accolades that she's getting and being featured in a magazine and being interviewed. This is just incredible. There's so much more to MyGreat28 or what we're doing than just weight loss. This is getting people's lives and their health back, and if it weren't for the health panel, you, Dr. Greg, Dr. Elvira, just pouring yourselves into us, we appreciate it so much.
My pleasure, as always.
And so now, guys, we're going to see you next week. This is a big, big milestone, so stay in touch with your coaches. We definitely want your pictures and measurements. We want you to keep up the great work, and we want to know your stories. Feel free to send in a little email of how you're doing, what you've noticed, what you like, what's going on. And we want to start featuring you in social media and all kinds of different ways because those words will encourage other people and help them get through whatever it is that they need to get their transformation as well. So we're signing off. It's been a great, great night. Y'all have a super fantastic week, and we cannot wait to hear from each and every one of you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mike. Thank you so much, Dr. Greg. And we'll be seeing everybody next week.
Good night.
Have a great week.
Good night.